Hey everybody, welcome to a new video, it's Federico here. So let's say that you know Max decently well, you have a lot of fun working with audio processing, MSP in Max, and you would like to get into Jitter. So the first thing you do is that you go check the documentation of Jitter. You look for Max MSP Jitter documentation. So the first results on Google are not actually the correct ones. You should open the one called Max Documentation on Cycling 74. And then you could go on User Guide. And if you scroll down here, you will see that there is a Jitter page. There is a Jitter section with some pages. The problem is that those topics are in alphabetical order. They are not from beginner to advanced. And the topics discussed in these articles are not consequential. So you will have, for example, depth and blending, but at this point you still don't know even what jitter is. So, and you're already introduced to like depth testing and layering. So that's not the correct place to go. So you could go to learn and click on the jitter tutorials. Now this is a much better place to start learning jitter because it gives you like from basic to advanced topics. The only problem is that there is a limited number of modern articles on that. There is, for example, how to display a video, and then live capture, and so on. Let's go back to the previous page, and you can see how to control jitter object with messages, the 3D objects, then the jitter matrix. That's super useful articles. The problem is that they are just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Only 10 of them. And then you have right away the legacy tutorials. Now the name itself tells you that this is not really the best place to learn jitter. These are legacy tutorials. They are made I don't know how many years ago, but jitter has been around since 2001, I think, something like that. So it's already like 26, 25 years old. And these tutorials, when made relatively back far in time, you can read them. You should read them if you want to get as many info as possible, because they will still give you some useful information, but they are just outdated. So you could then go to watch my tutorials. I have a lot of tutorials on basics with Max. So in this video, I'd like to give you an overview of how jitter works from a kind of comprehensive point of view. So the one thing to understand about jitter is that contrary to MSP or normal Max, where you have objects triggering the processing of other objects through inputs, for example, I can send a bang to a message that will trigger the output of a line object, right? And this will give us some values triggered by this bang. So this bang is what causes the whole processing chain to start. And this is what we will call like event-driven processing. And you have this in jitter, but jitter is composed by several families of objects. So you have event-driven objects, and let me introduce you actually to this conceptual map that I made with the help of a large language model. It took me quite a bit of iterations to get it to a decent level. It's still not a decent level, it's still pretty confusing, but it's usable to start understanding how the different families of objects in jitter work and how they are interrelated. So we have, for example, the matrix operators. Now, when jitter was born, there were only matrices. Everything was done using matrices, so all the video processing... sorry, there is a very loud... So when jitter was born, everything was done using matrices, which are containers of data, and they are used for image processing, video processing. Video is just a bunch of images, one after the other, and in general as data containers. So matrices, for example, are event-driven, which means you have a matrix, for example, a JIT noise containing some random numbers, and then you send it a bang, and it will output its content, and this will trigger a chain of events, like you will do in traditional Max programming. And these are bunch of objects. Like, this is not a comprehensive list, but just some examples of objects that use this event-driven paradigm and use matrices, like JIT for the noise, and JIT operator for doing simple operations on a matrix. So these are the event-driven objects in Jitter. Then you have the non-event-driven objects, but we could call them frame-driven objects. So the frame-driven objects require a rendering context. This could be like a JIT world, or a JIT P world, or a GGL node. And I think that's it. So these are objects that create these rendering context, which is like a container for all the 3D objects that you can render in a rendering scene. For example, I have here a JIT world, which I will call my world, and I can draw to that a GGL grid shape by giving it the name of the world. So we can think about rendering contexts like containers where the objects are drawn into, and the drawing of this object is happening at a certain rate. And we can check this with the FPS GUI object. So this 3D object, this 3D shape, this sphere, is being rendered at 60 frames per second, which means every second this is rendered 60 times. And this is happening independently of this object being connected to the GGL grid shape. So you cannot even actually connect the JIT world to the GGL grid shape. A difference is with a GGL node, where you can actually connect objects to the rendering context with a cable, and this will then, if we set the capture attribute here, this will then render this object to this other context. So you can see that it disappeared from the JIT world and is now inside the rendering context provided by this GGL node. So these objects don't really work with the cable transporting data between them. For example, even this cable that connects the GGL node to GGL grid shape, we could say that this is a smart cable, or for lack of a better definition, which means this is not transporting data, this is establishing a hierarchy between these two objects. So the GGL node is going to be the container for the GGL grid shape if the capture attribute is on. I think this is what puts off most people that want to learn Jitter, the fact that it doesn't work like normal Max, but it has these different paradigms. So you will have event-driven objects, you will have frame-driven objects like the GGL grid shape and the GGL mesh, and then you have these smart cables which don't transport data but establish hierarchies between objects, or they basically assign a certain relationship between two objects. And then, for example, you also have the post-processing with objects like GGL path, GGL material. So let's say I get a GGL material here, and I attach it to this, not here, but to the grid shape. This will apply a material to the shape, which means now this shape has a certain shader attached to it, which is defined in the GGL material. And so it changes the appearance of the shape. But this cable is not transporting data, this is establishing this relationship. And another confusing thing is that you can also not use cables, but just use attributes for Jitter objects. Jitter objects use a lot of attributes, contrary to MSP and standard Max objects. So we could say, for example, material, and then just choose a name. And then if we will give a name to that, call it in the same way, now the relationship is established again without using cables, but using attributes. Exactly because these cables are not transporting data, you can most of the times also replace them with attributes. For example, a JIT fizz body will work the same way as GGL material. You can either connect it to an object, and now it's gone because the gravity just pulled it down and made it fall. So in this case, they will work with a cable, and they will also work in a different way. So the other way around of the GGL material, basically I give a name to the grid shape, and then on the JIT fizz body I set the target name to that of the target object. And so when I remove kinematic, for example, which basically removes the physics, then the shape will fall. So you can see that they are connected now through the other attributes. So I understand that it's tricky to know when to use cables and when to use attributes. It's mostly the same if you are in JavaScript and you are scripting the objects using JavaScript, you cannot use cables, so you will use the attributes. That also a big reason why they exist. But in the patcher, it's mostly doesn't matter. You can either do it with cables or with attributes. Mostly it's going to be the same. So once you understand this fact that we have event-driven objects and frame-driven or context-driven objects, everything becomes much clearer, I think. And then we have some odd mixture between the two, like for example the Gitmo objects, which are matrix objects, but they are connected to a rendering context automatically. The same goes, for example, for video objects, like the JIT movie, for example. There is a matrix object outputting matrices, but is also automatically connected to the rendering context if there is one. If not, you can just drive it with bangs. But in this way, it's kind of an hybrid object. But for example, the GGL movie will always need a rendering context. So in general, all the objects that have the GL in the name will be frame-driven and be connected to a rendering context. And all the objects that are just JIT something, they will be event-driven. For example, the JIT FX. This is connected to a rendering context, but is an event-driven object in the sense that it will need an input to produce an output. And the same goes for GGL pigs. These are all processors. These are all texture processors. So they will definitely need an input to produce an output. Because they are processing the input, they need to know what the input is. But objects like GGL pass, for example, they will not need to get an input. This is a post-processing object which takes the whole scene that has been rendered, and it will be frame-driven by the rendering context. And then we have things like the JIT geom objects, which are not frame-driven, they are state change-driven, which means when the state of one of the objects in the JIT geometry chain changes, then all the objects get updated. This is kind of a very special case. There are not other objects in Jitter at the moment that use the same paradigm, I think. And then we have MSP objects that will translate between Jitter and the audio world, which work at signal rate, and so on. 2D drawing will be event-driven. We don't really do much of 2D drawing nowadays anymore, but they exist. So that's all I wanted to tell you in this video. I will attach this little HTML map to this Patreon post that I'm going to make for this video. You can download it from there. By becoming a patron of mine, this is what fuels this channel. So thank you very much if you choose to do so. In any case, I hope this is useful. I have already a lot of videos about the basics of Jitter, so if you want to go deeper into a topic, just check my website, link in the description with all my video tutorials. But I hope this video is helpful in clarifying a bit how things work in Jitter from a higher point of view. So, thanks a lot for following. I will see you in the next video. In the meantime, take care and have fun. Ciao.